guys, welcome back to the podcast that I'm hosting after a very, very long time. So, a little bit of brief about why are we doing this. So, this podcast series are a medium for me to bring out professional journeys of people in different fields, how they are acing it, and how you can enter the same field. My guests share their journey and what they exactly do, and insights into making into their field. So, I hope you will find this podcast informative. So, today we have Heer with us. Heer is someone who is deeply involved in the life sciences and biotech sector. She is currently a PhD candidate at Harvard University in the Department of Molecular and Cellular Biology, and also serves as a co-president of Nucleate, a non-profit organization that supports early stage biotech ventures. So today we talk to her and try to understand about her journey so far, about her journey being an academic and a research person in Harvard, and what does she do exactly at Nucleate, and most importantly, how does she manage the rigorous demands of a PhD research student with a leadership role at Nucleate. So, yeah, let's welcome Heer. So, without further ado, let's begin. Hi, Heer. Thank you so much for being a part of this with me and taking out time from your busy schedule to do this with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. First of all, thank you so much, Vani. This is such a nice initiative. Thank you for thinking of me for this. Yes. I'm Heer. I am actually wrapping up my PhD in the next 6 months at Harvard. I work on developmental biology, specifically of the retina. So what I try to understand is how does our eye look the same across different people, different species, and how are all of the different cell types formed within the eye. Outside of this, I have a very strong interest in biotech entrepreneurship as well as non-academic careers in biotech. So that's where my role at Nucleate comes in, where I work with a nonprofit and a team of student volunteers around the world to support biotech trainees that go into all of these different paths. I grew up in India and I moved to Boston for grad school, but my undergrad was at BITS Pilani.
Okay, so you did your graduation from BITS Pilani in India, right? And what was it in? Like you did it, you did a BTech there?
Yeah, so BITS is very unique. That way, they offer something called as a dual degree program where you have a BTech plus an MSc. So it's an interesting combination. You come in for your MSc degree. So I came in my first year as an MSc biology student, and then based on your first year GPA, you can get a dual, which is an engineering degree. So my degree in BITS was bio plus electrical engineering.
Okay, got it. So whatever you are doing currently in Harvard, or was it anyway related to what you pursued in your graduation, or the subjects were completely different from what you're doing now?
So the electrical engineering part, not at all, no overlap whatsoever. Sometimes I see current equations, and then I get very excited because they seem familiar to me. But other than that, nothing. So I came in for my undergrad with an interest in biology. I just grew up feeling like I liked that subject. I was always very interested in the science side of things. And in my first 2 years at BITS, we had a really nice faculty staff there. So I got very involved in the research. I thought I was doing a lot, but it was mostly me being a shadow to the PhD students and just learning and just really enjoying being in lab. So by the time I started my electrical engineering courses, I already had developed a very strong interest in bio. And something I wanted to do back then was use both these degrees to do something like biorobotics or biomimetics. So having a robotic arm that can be used in the cases of amputation, for example, and operates like a real arm. I realized very quickly that I was more drawn to the bio side of it than the engineering side of it, but I still kept doing both in parallel, mostly because I really appreciate having that math background. I think they both taught me very different things. The bio side of things gave me an insight into the entire world of biology and what I could do after, and then the engineering side of things, I think, really honed in on my problem solving, quantitative thinking kind of skills. So I thought that combination eventually worked out, even if I did not merge them in the way I had hoped.
Yeah, I think it was sort of best of both world when it comes to um, having a good career, or maybe doing also something which you like, right? So so right after, like, while you were doing your graduation in BITS Pilani, and you were also basically an electrical engineer, if I'm not wrong, right? You were doing that, so you had like made up your mind about this whole Harvard thing. You'll go there, pursue a PhD in maybe this field, or was it something that like eventually happened? Did you sit for any placements right after your college, or you were just sure that you'll probably just go for higher studies and go to maybe Boston? So how was like that entire decision making like for you?
It's a really good question, and if I like think back right now, everything seems like it worked out. Where I thought of something, and I did it, and then I did the other
It
thing,
does look
which
like that.
led to the next thing. But
Hmm.
I no, that was it's I had heard this before, which was you go well ahead in life and then look back, and everything seems like a straight line. It's more or less not a straight line. It's like a very snakes and ladder kind of a story. But it was the same for me. I just like bio, and I started doing it, and I started realizing that I also enjoy it and I'm good at it.
Hmm.
So I had no idea what like different careers in biotech would mean, and I do think that's where like this it's a growing field, but there's like not as many role models. Like there's not a lot of set career paths. For example, if computer science, like that was the phase where like everyone wanted to do CS, and
Yeah.
you could either do GSOC, or you could have a startup, or you could go for masters. Like it was a very
Finance
clear
maybe.
path. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of options. There were a lot of like seniors that you could talk to. It was not the same case for like bio research, for example, back then. But I had this one senior in my undergrad who was very interested in bio. He was like a year ahead of me and would do all of these things. So all I started doing was like talking to him more. So he did an internship in his third year at MIT and
Hmm.
came back and would talk about all of the research, and would encourage me saying, oh, if you're interested, like you should apply. And I was very resilient because I didn't know what this was.
Hmm.
I wasn't looking to travel that far. For me, summer interns were more like, oh yeah, where are my friends going, we can all like hang out together.
Yeah.
But I think I was very grateful. I'm very grateful still, and very lucky to have someone around me who was who felt like they should invest a little bit more time in like guiding me. And I think at one time he made me sit down and apply for some of these internships, being like, did you apply or not? Like, do it right now.
Hmm.
And I got into a couple of these internships, and it clicked. So that's the first time I came to Boston in my third year, wanting to just do research for 3 months, like see
Hmm.
what life is here. And then I went back, and I just kept coming every summer after that. So I came for my fourth year summer. Did not love Boston at the time. It was very cold. Did not find Indian food.
Hmm.
It was a little bit of culture shock, etc. So every time I went back, I swore I would never come back here. And then I just kept coming and coming and coming.
So this brings me to the question. You're someone who was not looking forward to doing an internship, especially outside India, right? Let alone Boston. You didn't like the weather at all or whatever. So tell me a little bit about the transition. Like, now you live there for like, I mean, how many years you've been living in the US now?
7. It's a long,
7.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
and you look like someone who's just who looks like a native now to me. Like, I think you now like it in there. So tell us a little bit about the transition, especially being an Indian student. So and also you can tell us a little bit about how was Harvard like. I mean, BITS Pilani is also one of the best colleges in India. So how was the culture different there, maybe in terms of student mindset and also the teachers? You can tell us little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll tell a funny story. Maybe I'll answer the second part first about the culture and the professors. So BITS is a phenomenal institute. A lot of the things like my interest, everything just blooming in terms of like my love for biology. I attribute that to my faculty in BITS. But we also had a no attendance policy in BITS Goa. Or BITS Pilani has a no attendance policy, which means you're not required to go to any classes. So I was one of those students who always thought going to classes is optional unless there is a test. I also, again, had really great friends who liked going to classes, would come back and give notes. So I have survived BITS on like notes from my really, really disciplined friends, and I was not nowhere close to going to classes. So when I came to Boston, I did take classes, which I found interesting, but I don't think anyone felt that it was an important note to add that you should go to class. I also just assume that it's, I'll go if I feel like. I started going more, but I still would wake up late one day or just wake up and be like, I want to sleep in more today or something of that
Hmm.
sort. So very quickly, like I think 3 weeks or 4 weeks into it, I did get an email from my professor being like, this is unacceptable. We will fail you if you do not come to classes. And it took me so long to understand why. Because I only missed like 2 or 3 classes. And I tried to tell him that I come from a culture where I go to zero classes.
It's acceptable. It's a
Yeah.
norm.
So I think that was a very unique culture shock I had to deal with because I just would not understand why that professor is behind me. He thought I was going through something personally. Like he would check in with me every few weeks, and then one after that I did feel bad, so I started going to more classes. And he one time emailed me saying he appreciates my improvement, and I just it was adorable. But it to me still I'm like, why? Like you're teaching such nice things. It so yeah, I had to learn that the hard way. That was the culture I came from. But outside of this, again, Harvard is a I had heard about it as a sanctuary for research, especially biotech. Like Harvard Medical School is very extensive in terms of its like biotech research. But
Okay.
something that was very unique to Harvard that I think is you can't replicate that anywhere, not even like forget any other country, but just even within the US is how dense it is. So Harvard University has a lot of researchers. Then you have Harvard Medical School, which has a lot of researchers and a lot of like doctors. And then you have 7 hospitals that are all within like 1 mile of Harvard Medical School. So, and these are the
Right.
biggest hospitals in the world. So basically, you have everyone sitting in the same place, people who are doing the research, people who are translating the research, taking it to the patients, and then the patients. Um,
Hmm.
and we also have all of the biggest pharmas in the world. They're all within this like 5-10 kilometer radius, basically.
Okay.
And I think that ecosystem was very unique. That was something beyond what I had seen. We so yeah, that was something I was like really blown away by when I moved.
Great, great, great. So I think now, like, we can move to the part wherein you talk a little bit about, how did Nucleate happen, right? I mean, you are still a PhD candidate, and tell us a little bit about what does the company Nucleate do, and what is like your role in it.
Yeah, so I think the other thing that the interdisciplinary background that I had growing up or in my undergrad played a role is I came to my PhD knowing that I like the engineering side of it. I do like I want to have a career in biotech that is like beyond just research on the bench. So I even before I started my PhD, I looked up like different clubs on campus. Again, a lot of the takeaways from the culture in BITS Goa, which is where I was
Hmm.
involved in a lot of different clubs, a lot of different activities, all while doing PhD, while doing research as well. So I came in, and there was something called as the Harvard Biotech Club. It's the oldest student biotech club
Okay.
anywhere, and they do these workshops and sessions around learning about different careers. Like if you want to have a career in pharma, if you want to have a career as a venture capitalist. So I joined that like a few months before I joined my PhD because I was free that summer. So I emailed them saying, "Oh, I'm available. I will volunteer. I want to get involved." So I was very different in my cohort that way. My cohort was very research focused, and I did feel a little bit different at the time because I came in wanting to know that not wanting knowing that I liked research. I wanted to learn more about biology, do research, but I then wanted to apply it in an industry setup, so not in a basic research setup. And Harvard Biotech Club at the time was a group of people who were all exploring different things. That's when a lot of biotech entrepreneurship was booming in Boston. So we set up a course which was to teach scientists to scale up their companies or to transform their companies. It was called Activator at the time. And that is what spun out to then become Nucleate. So I was always involved in the career development aspect of it. I built out a course which was between Harvard Business School professors and Harvard Medical School professors that talked about biotech businesses.
Okay.
I think just coming in, I always had this interest around the intersection of business and biotech. So I built out some of these educational programming for people like me because I felt like that was not there. And that's when Nucleate basically spun out, and I joined Nucleate, and I led the entire education programming there. So I built out a lot of different career courses, which were if you are a biotech trainee and you want to go into A, B, C, D, E careers, like how do we train you guys?
Understood. So, okay, we know that Nucleate support early stage biotech ventures. So, like, can you maybe provide some examples of successful projects or maybe startups that that have emerged out of maybe this program?
Yeah, it's a big question. So there's one example is we during COVID, Nucleate, it was set in Boston, but then it kind of went. It spread across US, across different universities, and then across the world. So we now in all different parts of the world, including India. But
Hmm.
one very unique thing was there was someone from like Harvard, a postdoc who was connected to a MBA student from Stanford, and they now together have a company. They spun out, went through our program, and that company is like on its path of like raising their first like big round, like Series
Great.
A. Now, these are people who would have not met in a different scenario. The other thing that like really speaks to me in terms of the impact of Nucleate is also just outside of ecosystems like Boston, which are already very saturated with like this information. Like if you are in Boston, you are exposed to a lot of these different you have so many role models. It's a running joke that 1 out of 3 people you meet on the street in Boston will be a health tech professional. So it's not the best example of where you have that impact, but I would say to me, I went to our chapter in Nice, which is in the southern France, and I met so many PhD students there who are part of the Nucleate team, and they would say things like, we did not know that there were all these alternate careers that existed, and we learned about it through this. We learned how to have like soft skills around presentation, like talking about our research to people who are not the research community. So I think that Nucleate has had a lot of impact in two different ways. One with like really just forming companies with people who would have not met. Some of these companies now have, one of our company has their product in the clinic already. So it's in the 8th patient. So we're very excited about it. On the other side, it's just around like professional development, like career development. So people who work from ecosystems that are not as mature in terms of biotech landscape, them having access to Boston, like really bridging the gap around the world is something that like really suits me.
That's great. I think in the US, a lot of things are already happening right in the field. So, can you maybe comment a little bit about, biotech, maybe Indian industry, what all things are happening here, maybe, and in your opinion, what can be done to maybe grow this field as well as much as it is already growing in the US? And yeah, I mean, you can share your insights in this regard.
Yeah, so I'm personally very excited about the Indian biotech landscape. It's very different than the US one. Just again, like you said, it's still like growing. It's not in its mature state right now. But what I love about the Indian ecosystem is that all the players, which is the government, the private capital, the hospitals, the research institutes, like they all recognize that this is a need and they're all working together. So there was a report published by the BITech, which is a part of the government which supports early stage entrepreneurship. That said, like India has already had over like thousands of startups that have gone into it. They do a lot of government grants to support these early stage startups, and I think that's like it's something. It's if you think about it as a hockey stick model, it's on that curve to really boom. We've had like luminaries like Kiran Mazumdar Shah. If you look at Shark Tank India, you have like Namita Thapar there who has biotech background, like being in that center stage of like the startup ecosystem in India. So it's coming into mainstream conversations. It's not just as deep tech is growing in India. That being said, I do think that there are some things that would again really there's things you can learn from like mature ecosystems. For example, biotech is very hard to build. It takes a long time. It's very capital intensive. So on top of like government funding, it is helpful to have more private capital fly in. And so we have seen more and more deep tech ventures emerge in India, for example. And the other thing is it's always, back to the role model mentors thing. Like it's always good to be connected to people, like-minded people who have done similar things, so you can learn from them. So that's a place where I think a lot of synergies exist between ecosystems that are like UK, US, some of these more mature biotech ecosystems where it would help to have like connections in terms of having mentors for some of these startups, having VCs who invest across borders. So people who already have that experience and expertise of building in biotech, and also the risk tolerance, because it's a very risky business. You can have 1,000 targets and then nothing, like one drug might come out of it, or maybe even not that. So that expertise is something that, it still exists. There's still some interaction between these different countries, but I think having those borders be more porous, more fluid, would be very, very helpful. To that end, a lot of effort is going on. So I worked with a couple of VCs in India, so Omnivore VC, which is a agri-tech fund in India, and a lot of partners, which included the BIRAC. We set up something called as the BioWave initiative, which really was to get all the venture capitalists and the scientists and the founders and the government officials in a room together. So that's something we're very excited to build out in the coming years, where, hopefully it'll go global, where we invite people who invest in biotech, like researchers, founders from US, UK to India, and then like build that ecosystem more, especially as India is like on its way up in terms of its biotech.
Okay, great. So, here my next question would be, like, since a lot of things are already like happening in India, right? I mean, but when it comes to maybe, the student community knowing about it on a very deeper level, actually a lot of companies are investing in it. This is a booming sector and all that. They're not that probably aware about it, right? And as far as the maybe academic syllabus is concerned, and probably a lot of students are not looking forward to take that route which you took, right? They're not into academics that much, but they want to make a career out of biotech, and they want to, they like this industry and this field. They like learning about this stuff. So for example, software developers, even though they probably did civil engineering or whatever, there are a lot of source material available online. There are a lot of people they can follow, maybe whom they can just gain things from, right? They can learn on their own. So when it comes to maybe biotech, what are the sources, or maybe how can a normal graduate, or maybe someone who's still in college, who is interested in this field, can be aware of this industry in a way that he is sort of able to make a career out of it, right? I mean, they know what direction they're going, which people, maybe which platforms to follow in India, right? And they can have a growth in this. Like, if you can recommend some of that to students.
Yeah, no, it's always helpful to have some of these resources. And, for example, what you guys are doing with AccuJobs, like it's skill development. It would be very, very valuable to have something like that for biotech. I don't think it entirely exists, but I know it's something that the government or like the policies have been prioritizing for a while, which is to have like skill building. Learning the skills that would get you the job outside of your academic curriculum. So that's something that's in the works. And I do think that has the potential to, really make people really, really impart like transferable skills, or skills that would get you into that one job at pharma, or get you into that job at a biotech startup as they keep coming up. So I think that is finding those sources, and also a lot of that can be found online. So computational biology is definitely something where you can merge both of those things. You can still do the software training, especially in this world of AI and ML. Like there's a lot of biotech data that needs mining, that will have impact in terms of how drugs are made, how a lot of the biotech companies progress. So I think if you are someone who's getting into this field, I would say that's a non-negotiable skill. Like, you do want to take the time, and you have the option to take that initiative yourselves, and use the wide range of resources that the software side has. And the last thing I will say is that there's a lot of like curriculum update that has been happening across like the top universities in India. I will say the one that I know of is like in STEM and CBS. That's one of the premier research institutes in India, based out of Bangalore. I know they've started introducing bio-entrepreneurship as a part of their curriculum. So there is not this disconnect in terms of what you are learning in your courses and then the career you would have. So having more education or more curriculum-based things around careers in biotech, like science communication, biotech investing, biotech entrepreneurship, I think those are a few things that would be very helpful. And finally, I think platforms like Nucleate are student run, they're free of cost, they're global. So there's so many courses, like with Nucleate, there's some other communities like that, where you just have to connect with them and take some of those courses. Like it does open up the world in terms of the possibilities of careers. And really, I think everyone is happy to help. Like, no one has gotten to where they are by themselves. Everyone, it's like lift as you climb, basically. So people like giving back. And so if you if you truly are trying to explore this or want to are struggling or have hit a ceiling in terms of like, oh, I want to learn XYZ or get to XYZ point, how do I do that? I think reaching out to people who you think have followed or will have insights to share in a very thoughtful message, in a very personalized way, will yield results that are, surprising and honestly very, very kind.
Yeah, I think that was quite insightful. I think if a lot of students who are into it, maybe if they follow this advice, it'll be really helpful for them. I'll also make sure that we'll put down the link to Nucleate in the description so that whoever is interested in checking out, Nucleate, they will be able to. And yeah, so coming back to you here, you've been a part of Nucleate for quite some time now. You're a president there. So tell us maybe how does your day to day look like, and what are your future goals with your PhD also wrapping up, and so what are your future plans if you can share that with us?
Yeah, my day to day is a mix of everything. I wake up and I don't know what I will be focusing on that day. I like make a lot of plans, but it's always one fire or the other. But I make this joke where I have like a day job and then an evening job and then a night job mostly, which is I do Nucleate stuff, I do PhD, and then I think in between this I also like exploring a lot of different ventures, and I always keep dabbling into multiple things. So work-life balance is hard, but I do think that I'm moving to a place where I do enjoy things that I'm doing, but that doesn't mean that it takes up the entire time. I try to take out time for like something fun every week. These days I'm painting, so I try to make sure that I have time to spend with my family, with my friends, and also just some time by myself doing things that I like. I really feel very motivated to work, but I want to be very mindful about that not being my entire calendar. But yeah, if you look at my calendar, I sometimes faint just looking at my calendar. And that's when I go back to sleep and I miss classes, basically. I'm like, this is too much for today. But yeah, so I think that's what my day-to-day generally is. And in terms of what's next for me, I think PhD is wrapping up. It does feel like an end of an era. I've been doing this for so long. We had like a whole pandemic around it, so it feels like I had a before and an after pandemic time. And I'm very interested and also very excited about the Indian healthcare ecosystem. I do want to work in the intersection of like India-US, in the India-US corridor. So still don't have a very clear next step figured out, but I think it will be something where I can bring some of the expertise and like some of my own learnings from this US ecosystem to India, and then help bring some of the technology that's like coming up in India to the US market. So that's something I'm still figuring out what the best way for that would be. But I'm very excited about it, and yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing after I graduate. After I take a very big break, maybe.
Okay.
That's my
great
goal after graduating, is to take a vacation.
Nice, as you should. Okay, cool. I think Nucleate will be doing a lot of things in the Indian market as well. I think you will be traveling a lot to India, doing a lot of things in collaboration with maybe other ventures, right? So I hope whoever is interested, whoever wants to keep a tab, they can just keep following your Nucleate maybe socials, right? I hope you guys like update there regularly. Yeah, so I think it was a really insightful conversation, especially for me as well, because I had like no idea about this industry, and I hope people watching this will also get to know a lot about it. And yeah, they can keep following Nucleate for more information. And yeah, it was great talking to you here, and I hope to see you soon.
I know. Yeah, thank you for having me. It was very, very nice. This was a fun conversation, and yeah, Nucleate socials, and also just I'm always happy to help. So if you want to hit me up on LinkedIn with any questions, I will definitely take the time to reply. But yeah, it's an exciting time for biotech in India and just biotech, around the world. We just came out of a pandemic, so everyone knows Moderna. Everyone understands how important that was to have that vaccine so far quickly done. And yeah, so very, very excited for what the future holds, not just for general biotech, but also for biotech in India.
Yeah, so I'll also link Heer's LinkedIn in the description in case anyone wants to reach out and have a chat with her. So yeah, thank you so much, Heer.